You're listening to Black Music Scene, a product of the Black Orchestral Network, where our mission is to cultivate community, lift our voices, and tell our stories. This is our archive, where we uplift the stories of living legends and unsung heroes in Black classical music. In today's episode, we'll meet Rufus Olivier Jr., the principal bassoonist for the San Francisco Opera and San Francisco Ballet. He joined the Symphony in 1977 at only 21 years of age after winning the position for second bassoon. When the San Francisco Symphony split from the San Francisco Opera, Rufus auditioned for the opera and won the principal position. In 1992, he won the principal bassoon spot for the San Francisco Ballet as well. He has recorded many movie, video, CD, and TV soundtracks, including Disney's Never Cry Wolf and San Francisco Opera's Grammy-nominated CD, Orpheus and Eurydice. He was even awarded a Grammy for the soundtrack Elmo in Grouchland. Over several decades, Rufus Olivier Jr. has led a career very much worthy of uplifting and celebrating. We had an amazing time sitting down with him and getting to know him. He's an exuberant guy full of laughs who certainly mastered the art of the bassoon and navigating life one step at a time.
Hello, my name is Rufus Olivier Jr. I was born in Watts, California. My mother's name is Gurley Olivier and my father, Rufus Sr., Rufus Olivier Sr., and I have four older sisters. I'm the principal bassoonist of the San Francisco Opera and the principal bassoonist of the San Francisco Ballet. I never really had a plan, but I had a wish, and I think when I started taking lessons, all my lessons were PTA scholarships, things like that. My parents never paid a penny for a private lesson. So I was trying to get any PTA scholarship, anything, $100 here. I think I was in junior high when I got my first bassoon lessons over at USC. I remember getting to this place. It was part of the USC extension, and it was in a place called the Clark House. It was an old mansion. Heifetz taught there. All these people taught there, and I took my lessons in this little room with Ray Nowlin. And one of the first things he taught me was, he says, if you grease your thumb and your nose, your fingers will slide much better on the back of your horn. And I thought, wow, that's why I'm here. I got to grease my thumbs. But it was great. He was a fabulous teacher, fabulous man. Played for Warner Brothers. He was a Warner Brother contract player. One day he asked me to come if he could drive me home. I said, heck yeah, I don't want to take the bus. And he drove me home, and then he said, can I talk to your mother? I said, sure. Came in the house, and I'm standing there. This is my teacher, mom, because they didn't know. And he just said, Mrs. Olivier, I think your son could be a bassoon player. It shocked me, So that seed was in there. I knew I was going to play something. I knew I was going to be something. My father had to quit playing in the big bands before the war because he had 5 kids. And he always told me, I stopped playing music so I could take care of you guys, because he said if I was playing my saxophone, jazz everywhere, I wouldn't be home. I would never be home. So he sort of gave it all up and worked at the Department of Water and Power. So I was thinking, how can I play music all the time and go home every night? Bam! A symphony orchestra. I could go play in an orchestra and I can go home after the show. It was perfect. I could raise a family, play music, and go home and raise my kids. My dad was he was sort of quiet. He wasn't forceful. He wasn't any, domineering at all. He never told me I was better than anybody. He just said I was just as good as, other people. That was, you are equal. You are just as good, no matter what Anybody, whatever you go through. Before World War II, before he went off to fight the war, he was a Buffalo soldier, by the way. Before going to war, he was a saxophone player in Louisiana, and a good one. During the Depression, he could take care of a whole neighborhood playing the saxophone in big bands because it paid. And then when he went off to war, he went to Italy, Naples. And he always talked about me getting over there. He said, you got to go to Naples and meet the Italians. And he said, they treated us really well over there, and you have to go. And I did. A couple of years ago, I actually made a little pilgrimage to Naples and went to the opera house, 400-year-old opera house. He had this stone, and it had a carving of a buffalo, 92nd Division. And this stone was always laying around the house. And we would use it to keep doors open. We would keep windows open with it. It was just a thing. And it wasn't until the last 10 years or so, they're like, who has that thing? I want that stone. One of my sisters said, but I thought, now everybody wants that little stone, the Buffalo soldier. And so he went off to war, and my mother and the 3 girls came to California with her father and sisters. And when he got out of the service, he met them back in L.A., and that's where I was born, in L.A. And I remember one night, I was, I guess, in the kitchen. He was talking to a crazy uncle of mine. He was really nuts. Everybody has a crazy uncle, right? And I remember my uncle saying to him, Rufus, tell me the truth. Would you have 5 kids? I mean, if you had to do it all over again. And my dad, he actually got very angry. He said, he just told her, he said, are you nuts? Yes, I would do it again. I love my kids. And I heard this from around the corner. You see what I'm saying? Are you crazy? You're crazy. He said, you were crazy for even saying that. And I was in the kitchen. I'll never, ever forget that. Like, wow. He wants us, Yeah, he defended us. And and then later he told me, he said, Uncle So-and-so, he's crazy. The most unforgettable moment I've ever had we were playing Aida. Okay? Margaret Price and Pavarotti were the singers. And so now you imagine, and these were regulars. This is why my opening night was with Domingo. My first opera was with Domingo and Shirley Verrett. So I'm seeing them. Leontine Price, every time she come to town, she'd look at me and wink, right? And so we're playing Aida. The tickets are already being scalped for $1,400. And this was back in the 80s, okay? So what happens? Now, Leontine Price is in town because the next opera I'm playing is with her and the Carmelites, I think it is. Well, one night, Margaret Price can't sing. And so, Leontine's here, and that's her seminal role. Aida is what made her famous in 1957. No one does that like her. So now, that night, Pavarotti and Leontine Price are going to sing. And I'm sitting there, and they friggin', both of them just went to the wall. They pushed the envelope of artistry and singing. And I could feel the hair in the back of my head stand up. I was almost getting dizzy. It was so good. And it must have been good because the audience gave 15-minute ovations after each act. After each act. For 15 minutes, we had to sit there. After each act. they had to do that. And it was they actually had to open up another hall and simulcast it across the street to 5,000 more people at reduced ticket prices because it was just unfriggin' believable. Yeah. So that one of those that moment was a great moment in my career, so to speak, you know. And playing that thing, that obligato thing with Leontine Price, oh my Lord, it's just unreal. When I started playing, I used to go to rehearsals in the town of Inglewood. Inglewood is known, right now they have a brand new football stadium, it used to be the Forum. But at one time, Inglewood, even though it was just a number of blocks away, it was sort of almost like a headquarters for the Ku Klux Klan, you know? And so my orchestra rehearsals was in Inglewood. And I remember one night, I would go in sort of early after school. I would take a bus, and I'd have to take the bus home. It's like 10 at night, and I'm taking the bus. And I remember one night after rehearsal, most of the kids' parents were picking them up. Everybody's picking them. My parents didn't drive. They didn't have cars. So I had to go everywhere on a bus. I had to carry my everywhere. And in order to get home, I used to carry little karate sticks up my sleeve so I could make it home from rehearsals. And so one night I'm at the bus stop, and all I had with me was a bassoon and an album of a Mozart bassoon concerto. And a bunch of these Klan type guys drove up, and they were at the corner, and they started coming at me with chains and clubs and golf things, and the bus was at the other light. They were coming, and that bus got there just in time for me to jump on before they got me, and the bus driver, a black man, jumped off the bus and grabbed one of the guys. Said, "Mess with me," and pushed him back, and it could possibly save my life. But that's what I did to go to rehearsals. to go to my rehearsals, I literally would carry a stick up my sleeve just so I could make it home from rehearsals. And that's why I seem like a joyous guy, because I have something to compare to my life then and you know what I mean? It was a good life then, but to get to this spot, it's very hard for me to complain about. There's too much light in my eye, or this, the trumpets are too loud. All I can say is I'm alive, you know. And so I made it from rehearsals alive because I was taking buses 10, 11 at night just to get to youth orchestras and stuff and concerts, because my parents didn't drive. And I never could tell my parents any of these stories, ever, because they would stop me. So it was a secret. Happy to me, it may just be being normal. Just being even killed to me seems, for me, is enough, you know. I have my bad days, I have my good days. Sometimes I'm driving home over the Golden Gate Bridge and I want to jump off after, oh God, I missed that lick, Anyway, but I think because I have things to compare unhappiness with and things I've seen, I'm a very, very, very good learner by watching. In other words, when I see somebody do something that doesn't work anywhere in life, I ain't gonna do it. I'm not gonna have to, I don't have to experience that myself, And I've had guys in high school or junior high where they would overdose and things like that. I've seen people shot up. I had a cousin shot up, and it wasn't his fault, or he wasn't a gangbanger. It was just in the line of fire, things you see, I've just been able to learn from other people's mistakes and not have to go through the same thing, you know. Being able to go home every night after playing music is a miracle, and you know, it's a miracle to be able to go home every night, see your kids, see your wife. You know, how many musicians you know get to do that and make a living playing music? It's almost unheard of, you know. So that makes me very happy.
This is Black Music Scene, a product of the Black Orchestra Network, an organization dedicated to creating an inclusive and equitable environment for Black people in the orchestral field. We see a world where Black orchestral artists easily find reflections of themselves and their complexities in the history and future of orchestral music. After sharing his story, Rufus took some time to sit down to chat with two of our BON steering committee members, Joy Payton-Stevens and Titus Underwood. They were so curious to learn more about Rufus and his upbringing, his experience with unions, and how Rufus found place and belonging in almost every space he occupied.
Beginning your orchestral career, what were you prepared for and what took you by surprise as a young man?
What was I prepared for and what took me by surprise? I've always gone day to day. I've never thought, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go do the best thing I can today, and that day is going to take care of tomorrow and the next day. I never knew what to expect or anything like that, but I was always, even now, I'm sort of a day-to-day person. I do the best I can today. And that seems to take care of tomorrow pretty well.
I really love that philosophy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a philosophy. It's just I don't know what it is. You know, I'm just a bassoon. I'm a bassoon player. Remember, the little gray cells aren't. You know.
Well, it seems to be working. So, as you were coming up in your career, did you have a team of people around you? Did you have mentors? Did you have people who were in your corner who were really helping you navigate the orchestral career?
Yeah, I had mentors. I had tour mentors, but I don't know about all the navigation and all that sort of thing. The main thing that I wanted to do at an early age was to just play music. And it didn't matter what kind at the time. I think I wanted to be a musician since I was 6 years old. I have 4 sisters older. I was born into them harmonizing in the background. I was born into my father before World War II, before he went off to fight the war. He was a Buffalo soldier, by the way. Before going to war, he was a saxophone player in Louisiana, and a good one. And so it was just, music was twirling around my house all the time. So I knew I was going to be a musician. I didn't know what kind or what. Although, like I said, I heard a lot of violin. I heard a lot of classical music growing up. A lot of jazz, a lot of classical, a lot of everything. I had a rock and roll band. I had everything. You know, I was in a jazz band in high school. So I pretty much played almost everything from the avant-garde to there's a fellow in L.A. I played with, Horace Tapscott, the Pan-African People's Orchestra, and that was all the community. You know, I grew up in South Central, and we played all the time. Horace's goal was to get as many people in the streets playing music and writing music, so we would play compositions by Black composers every month at this church. Wow. And I can't tell you how many people went through, we call it the orchestra. But so we just shortened it, we call it the ARC. And things like that, along with high school jazz band, along with top 40 pop band, you know, doing all kinds of stuff. I was playing saxophone too, till I was about 17. So I was doing both. I don't know how to navigate anything. I never had an idea of navigating. When you say navigate, it sounds like there's a plan. I never really had a plan but I had a wish. And that was, if you call it navigating, that was it. That was my brain, you know. I started playing with the Philharmonic when I was about 17 or 18. And Zubin had me play a concerto. I think I was 18. He played a little E minor, and Zubin was standing in the wings, and Sidney Hart was conducting. And after I finished, Zubin came over and said, "You're going to play with us from now on," you know. I said, "Fine with me." So I played with him, would go around with the Phil. At the time, Calvin Simmons, the great black conductor, was the assistant conductor at LA Philharmonic. So we would split the orchestra in half. I would go with Calvin's half sometimes when we do student stuff, and they let me play principal bassoon. And so from there, I think I did some opera gigs. I was on the road for 6 weeks with Goldovsky Opera out of New York. I was about 19 or something, and then I got a gig with Neville Mariner's band, orchestra, excuse me. Neville Mariner's group in L.A., the L.A. Chamber Orchestra. And about 6 weeks later, I auditioned for San Francisco Symphony, and I got in there. So by then I was 21. So I became a member of them when I was 21. And from that, at second bassoon, the opera opened up 3 years later, auditioned for that, became principal of the opera in 1980. And then in 91, the principal of the ballet opened up and auditioned for that and became principal of the ballet. So I've been doing that it's been San Francisco about 45 years now.
Wow.
Wow. So, like I said, I don't know navigating, things falling. I'm also surrounded by some of the greatest players in the world. You know, you guys are oboe players, right?
I was playing
Yeah, I was playing, I mean, think about it. I was playing a quintet with Mark Lipsky. You know what I'm saying? We were buds with Paul Renzi. I was playing with guys who played with Toscanini, who played with Zell. This was my community. These were guys I was playing with. And the most interesting thing about that, they never tried to teach me a thing. They treated me like, you got in the orchestra, you're one of us now. And it was up to me to pick up everything and learn. So I was sitting around the best musicians in the friggin' world, especially woodwind players, you know. I'm careful about saying navigate, because there's a little bit of luck going on, you know. There's a little bit of luck. I mean, we're musicians. This is a crazy world, you know. I'm careful about navigating because I couldn't say, okay, do this. Grow up in the ghetto, and then you take lessons, and you get PTA scholarships, and now you come out of the ghetto, and then you go and you get some teachers. I don't know. I really don't know. But I know I play as much as possible every day, to the point of almost failing high school. I was playing with the doctor's orchestra, the lawyer's orchestra, Philharmonic whenever they needed me, Neville Mariner. So after school, I was just playing my brains out all over L.A. all the time. And my mother was going to kill me, you know. But she would make me get up. I was playing after hours. If you call it navigating, that was it. That was my brain, you know. The main thing for me, which is getting as much time on my horn as humanly possible. I started playing with the Philharmonic when I was about 17 or 18, and Zubin had me play a concerto. I think I was 18. He played a little E minor, and Zubin was standing in the wings, and Sidney Hart was conducting.
That is incredible. That is incredible. I want to ask you about your union work. So,
yes.
Could you talk about your father's involvement in the union and say a little bit about your own experience as the union guy?
My father, he worked for the Department of Water and Power. That's gas and electric. And I know growing up, he was always talking about the union and this and that. You know, my folks, I was born in L.A., but my folks come out of Louisiana. They're like sharecroppers and stuff. And my grandfather, the oldest person in the family, led the charge. This is before World War II, or during. And that's that migration from the south to the west. And they wanted to get to California to get civil servant jobs, to get jobs. They got tired of the crap in Louisiana, in the South. And they came here and they joined unions and this and that, and they all of a sudden they had real jobs. They could buy houses. You could count on this. You have a little pension when you retire. And so I grew up in that kind of household where the union was very important. And I guess I'm still that way, you know. Yeah.
And
very important.
What roles can unions play today, and are there certain specific measures that orchestra unions can take to differ from regular practices in other industries?
Some new things that are happening, at least, remember, I'm in San Francisco in California, so it's a very broad-minded place. But just things like sound levels and ear protection, and this, you know, they supply special ear protection for the musicians, so we don't go deaf by the time you're older, and we're protected more from the conductors. You know, conductors, boy, they're some harsh people. You know, harsh, and we sort of got them under control with the unions as far as that go. As far as auditions, it's almost like every orchestra has their own little audition policy. I personally prefer blind all the way through because of the things I have heard. And I mean, it is shocking, you know, and I'm in the room. I remember in one audition, I heard guys saying, do we really want a woman in the brass section? You know, I heard this crap, you know. It didn't fly with me. I said, you know. Anyway, they hired her. Okay. But I've heard things like that. And I've heard things like from women, you know, there's nothing I like about that woman. Now, what kind of comment is that in an audition? There's nothing I like about that woman. That's weird. And I don't like that. I've been stung. I've been burned by screens coming down. I've been burned in my own city. And I was very staunch about it. I made a lot of noise about it. I said, this person got 10 out of 10 votes at every round. And that's why they should win. And I wouldn't move. I wouldn't budge an inch. And the conductor agreed. And we ended up hiring, black person. And I said, it has nothing to, some of the players, so-and-so is good. We played with this person. I said, look, this person spent a lot of money, a lot of time coming here, and they got 10 out of friggin' 10 votes. They don't get the job. Something is wrong. And the conductor agreed. So it's shameful, but I don't know how to change that. Human beings, you can't change human beings.
Indeed, it is challenging to change human beings. That's what I found in my time on this earth. But it's interesting the things that you talked about hearing in the audition committee room, some of these kind of biased comments, and you know that those biases are following beyond the audition, and it's fantastic that you were in the room to stand up for that person and make sure that the process was followed fairly. But then there's, like you say, after that, people are kind of on their own, even up against some of these biased opinions.
Well, you can still change things around. I mean, quite frankly, I fought for more Asians than anybody. I cleared a room once when I pointed out, I said, all you people are good. You're good people. Nice people. And this was way before people were talking about these things. I said, could there be a level of subliminal racism going on? And this was an Asian person, and everybody just left. And then they came back a few days later, and because they thought about it, they're like, I said, yeah, I hear back in the day people talking about Asian players, I hear, I said. And whenever I hear that, I hear somebody talking about Mexicans or Indians or Arabs. I'm the next guy on the list. You see, so if I can't fight for every of those guys, who am I? What's the point of me being there? Fortunately, I've been around long enough. I have a very good relationship with my orchestra. and I can talk to them about everything now. My latest thing now is conductors. And I told the management, I says, look, the worst person that treats the orchestra is the conductor. Can I go to HR to a conductor who's screaming at a violinist? You know, I said, that's really the culprit, is the conductor. And that kind of thing. So we try to get those clowns under control.
Yeah, definitely. It's a challenge to wrangle some of these personalities, especially around touchy topics. And I think that's a large catalyst for why we decided to form the Black Orchestral Network, so that nobody's feeling like they're bringing these issues alone and carrying all of that by themselves within the organization, that they also have to show up to work to, and with colleagues that you then have to play with, you know, that evening in the opening concert. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm in a very unique situation. I'm in California. I'm in San Francisco. San Francisco Opera. Forefront of. I mean, we have more diverse singers than I've ever seen in my life. You know, I mean, my opening night, Shirley Verrett. The next night's Leontine Price. The next night, Grace Bomby. This has been. I mean, we put Leontine on the map in '57. You know, she was discovered. I mean, literally, Adler, same guy that hired me, put Leontine Price on the map. He put me on the map.
Right.
And so he hired Calvin Simmons to do Lady Macbeth of Minsk back in the day. And the opera has always been that way. You know, we have lead black singers tonight and tomorrow and in the Park concert the next day. And so it's a nice place to work.
Right.
You know, it's always been a nice place to work, and that kind of thing.
Well, there was one thing I want to run past you. I mean, and also did something, and thank you so much. I mean, everything you talk about is so rich and has so much depth to it. I want to kind of go back to your childhood a little bit. You know, we as Black classical musicians know how different our life experiences are from most of our colleagues, and you're a guy from South Central, as you said, who was 9 years old in 1965, and this was during the riots.
Yeah. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
How aware were you of the differences in your experiences from your colleagues around you?
What, you mean like in my background?
Your background. Say, for instance, you were in the program with L.A. Phil, and you're teachers, but you have these different scholarships and different minority scholarships that you're part of. And did you see the difference between some of your other colleagues who were also pursuing classical music as well and yours? And were you aware of that at the time, or was that something that stuck with you, or is it something that you pushed through? What was that experience like, knowing that you were from Watts and you said you grew up, like you said, you grew up in the hood? So like how did that affect the way you socialized when you came into, say, the orchestra, majority white space in the orchestra?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't that hard for me. It's never been, and I think it's my father's fault. As a child, I mean, he put some seed in my head that I'm the same as everybody, and so I'll go anywhere. I will go anywhere. And, you know, and LA is a big place, so I'd have to take buses to this youth orchestra here, youth orchestra there. So I just have never had a problem going anywhere, going around different people. I would take myself. I mean, I would go to all my youth orchestra rehearsals in this big old dashiki and big afro, you know. But I was gonna let them know, you know, I'm here, okay, and that's that. But I've never felt intimidated, scared, or nervous, anything. So one guy, a reporter once asked me, do you get nervous playing for white people? I says, I get nervous playing for black people too, you know. Because they will tell you ain't doing nothing, boy. You know.
There you go. I mean, at that time when you were in that space, were there any black orchestral musicians you looked up to, or any that you knew personally during that time?
Yeah, I was hanging, back then, let's see, when I was studying and playing with the Philharmonic, Bob Watt was playing horn in the Philharmonic. Mm-hmm. Bob Watt, Tinsley was playing bass, but Bob, he still calls me. I think he's going off the charts, But Bob... I looked up to Bob, Bob Watt. We're two totally different type of guys, but I still respected him, and to this day, to me, he's just a funny guy. And I looked up to that, but I also looked up to, I got a lot of training listening to John Coltrane and Parker, because to me, I hear music the same way. So I idolized Cannonball Adderley, and I idolized, Charlie Parker, and good musicians. Wes Montgomery was one of my. When you listen to the phrasing that they're doing, their actual music they're making, it all made total sense to me, on a classical level. And so I said, well, if I could do my Mozart as well as Parker can do his Cherokee, it's going to be okay, And so I looked up to a lot of different types of musicians, singers from every genre. I mean, don't tell anybody, but I like country music too. And
come to Nashville, then you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. I mean, the stories they tell, those stories, I hear it. My brain hears it the same way. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And so my brain works that way. But I've never been intimidated walking into a room where being the only black person ever. Matter of fact, I've always thought it's not my problem, And my dad, I think and I didn't know this at the time, but I think my dad was doing that to me. We would be looking at, there was a show called Johnny Carson. They call Jimmy Kimmel now, or some, The Tonight Show. And they would have all these performers on there. And they were usually, most of them were white. And as we were sitting there, my dad would go, "You're just as good as them. You're just as good as them. You could do that. You're just as good as..." And I'm like, Dad, please. And I think this subliminally, I think it just got into my soul of him telling me, "You're just as good as everybody." Because I would always say, "Oh, Pop, please, give me a break," But I think it actually did something.
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have, and a great source of self-esteem. I am curious, though, if you realize, if it occurs to you, perhaps, that there are other people that might be looking to you as, the representation on stage, who might be seeing you as the first black classical musician that they've ever seen, and sort of drawing inspiration from you, or thinking about, oh, maybe I could do this thing. Does that ever come to your consciousness?
Oh, from the beginning, from the very beginning, I knew that. I've always known that, and it was, oh yeah, and I always felt, and maybe wrongly so, but I've always felt that I have to represent. I've always felt I'm going to represent, because I always feel I want men and women who come after me to have the door open, I feel like I represent. I've always felt that way, always, I've thought of that all the time, and just being, sometimes all you have to do is just be there. You don't have to say one word, just be there. You're sitting there in white tie and tails. All you have to do is be there. And then One of my decisions to leave San Francisco Symphony, a second bassoon, to play principal in the opera, was I said there should be a bassoon, a black bassoon, a principal in a major group like this, and this and that. I thought of that, and part of it was selfish. There was some selfish stuff in there too, because the world thinks in 1 and 2. Now between us, I know that my colleagues could sit in my chair any day. I know that. But when you have the title, the world sees it differently. Oh, you're the guy. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I knew that going in. I said, I'm going to be the guy. That kind of thing. Yeah. Now, if I didn't win those auditions and I was still in the Symphony of Second Bassoon, I'd be fine. I had some good people to play with, inspiring. And so, I don't know, navigate or luck. You tell me. I don't know.
I think it's a combination of all of them put together. And I have to say thank you so much for talking with us. You're bursting with confidence. I'm feeling inspired. I feel like I need to go over and make some reads right now talking to you. So we have an opening night of Mala too on Saturday. I get paid for what I do in this room, so I'm like, I need to get to what I need to do in this room where I'm in. So so I have to say,
make me some while you're at it.
Yeah, I'll try my best. The diameter is a little big, and but I'm thinking, but it's amazing. I love you speaking about your story as far as you seem like you speak from your soul and you play from your soul, and it's all a part of who you are and your makeup, and you're so proud and open about it. And that's very refreshing and beautiful to hear that even in a time before it was even popular to really just be open, especially in our space, that you just representing who you are. So thank you so much for having this conversation with us. We really appreciate it.
And I'm so glad.
I'm proud of you guys. I am. I've waited 45 friggin' years to meet you guys.
Look at that. You have to pay for the way. The official OG.
You weren't there.
That's the thing. I'm so grateful and happy to hear that you were conscious of the fact that you were sort of, leading the way and taking on the responsibility of being that representative. Because honestly, yes, you did have to wait kind of a while to meet us, but the pleasure is all ours. And we just want to express how appreciative we are of your place in classical music history and your place in guiding this path that we've been able to travel down along with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just glad I lived long enough to see you all. I'm not. You have no idea. I got to put on some sunglasses because I'm about to tear up. Where's my sunglasses? But just to have you beautiful folks here, my head wants to explode right now. You make me so happy. So happy, and I wish the best.
Thank you.
Play, practice your brains out. That's another thing. The better you play, the more people will listen to what you say.
Yep, absolutely.
Who would listen to Wynton Marsalis if he didn't play like a god? Okay.
Very good point.
So play good, and then playing comes before talking.
Absolutely.
And when you play good, then you can pretty much get respect and say anything in our world. Yeah.
The Black Music Scene podcast was written and produced by David Norville and co-hosted by Joy Payton-Stevens and Titus Underwood. Special thanks goes to Jennifer Arnold and Lexi Holloway. The Black Orchestral Network is sponsored by the Gateways Music Festival and generously supported by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. The Black Music Scene podcast is a product of the Black Orchestral Network, where our mission is to cultivate community, lift our voices, and tell our stories. If you'd like to get involved and support the Black Orchestral Network, please visit blackorchestralnetwork.org. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.